The Galactic Council chamber was silent. It was a rare kind of silence, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that comes before something important, something dangerous. Hundreds of eyes, from dozens of different species, turned toward the center of the room where a single figure stood. Commander Rethak was not an ordinary soldier. He was a war hero. He had fought in 3 different planetary campaigns and survived battles where even the strongest warriors had fallen. His armor was marked with deep burns and jagged cracks, the scars of heavy fighting. One of his arms hung in a sling, and his movements were slow, as if every step caused pain. But it wasn't the wounds on his body that caught attention. It was the look in his eyes. His eyes were tired, not the normal tiredness of a soldier returning from war, but the kind that comes from seeing something you wish you could forget. Something that stays in your mind, haunting you. Even when you close your eyes, the High Speaker of the Council, a tall crystalline being whose body shimmered with light, leaned forward. "Commander Rethak," the High Speaker said in a calm, deep voice, "you were given one of the strongest fleets in our history. 42 warships, advanced weapons, elite soldiers from across the Alliance, and yet you return with nothing. Your fleet is gone. Your mission failed. Explain yourself." There was a faint murmur from the crowd. Whispers passed between the alien delegates. Some were confused. Some were angry. Others were amused, as if they already knew the answer and found it laughable. Rethak raised his head. His voice was rough like gravel sliding against stone. It was the humans. At first, the chamber was silent again. Then, a wave of laughter rolled across the seats. Laughter from reptilian throats, clicking mandibles, vibrating vocal cords. The sound echoed against the high walls. Humans, a minor species, barely known in the wider galaxy. No great empire, no vast fleets. Primitive in technology, slow to explore, insignificant compared to the ancient powers of the stars. The High Speaker tilted its shining head. "Commander, are you saying humans destroyed your fleet?" The words were careful, almost mocking. Rethak didn't answer at first. His gaze dropped to the floor, his jaw tightening. Finally he spoke. "You do not understand. None of you do. You have never fought them. And survived." The laughter died. Not because they believed him, but because of the way he said it. There was no humor in his voice, only certainty and fear. "Tell us," the High Speaker commanded. "What happened?" Thake took a deep breath, and the memories came rushing back. He could still see it, as clear as if it was happening again. The moment when everything began to go wrong. It started with orders from the Council itself. Human activity in a remote sector of space had been detected. Strange energy readings, increased ship movement. They were expanding. The Council feared they might be building weapons. Thuck's mission was simple: go to their world. Demand surrender. If they refuse, remove the threat. He had felt confident. Why wouldn't he? His fleet was the pride of the Alliance, sleek, fast, armed with plasma cannons and shield arrays that could withstand asteroid impacts. Against humans. It would be over in hours. They arrived in the Sol system after a week of hyperjumps. The blue planet, Earth, hung below them, quiet, beautiful, almost fragile. White clouds curled over oceans. Green continents glowed in the sunlight. From orbit, it didn't look like the home of warriors. It looked harmless. Tha remembered giving the order to send the message. It was short, formal, and very clear. "This is Commander Thake of the Alliance. You will surrender your planet and resources. Do this, and you will live. Refuse, and you will be destroyed." The message went out on every known frequency. They waited for a reply. The reply came, but it was not words. Every channel suddenly filled with a sound none of them had expected. It was music. Loud, aggressive, filled with drums and a deep rhythm, that made even his soldiers shift uncomfortably. It was not a song of peace. It was a song for battle. The humans were answering, but not with surrender. They were sending a message of their own. We are ready. Thak ordered his fleet into attack formation. The humans' ships began to rise from the planet's surface, but they didn't look like the massive cruisers the Alliance used. They were smaller, older designs, with visible armor plating and unusual shapes. No standard pattern. They looked improvised, and yet there was something about the way they moved. The humans didn't approach in a straight line. They scattered. They weaved. They acted like hunters, circling their prey, looking for weakness. It was unsettling. Rethek's second officer, a cold-blooded reptilian named Sivar, scoffed at the sight. Pathetic. They are uncoordinated. They will fall in minutes. Minutes later, 2 of their destroyers exploded. It wasn't possible. The humans had weaker weapons. Their ships were slower in a straight chase, but they didn't fight in straight lines. They darted between blind spots, using the debris of destroyed ships as cover. They turned every scrap of metal, every floating piece of wreckage, into a shield. Rethak ordered a retreat to regroup. But something strange happened. The humans didn't let them. Instead of holding position to defend Earth, the human ships chased the retreating alien fleet. It was madness. It was suicide. And yet, somehow, it worked. He could still hear the voice of his weapons officer that day. They're still coming. Commander, they're smiling. Yes, smiling. Even as their ships took damage. Even as they lost fighters. The humans fought with a kind of energy Rethak had never seen before. They didn't seem afraid of dying. They only seemed afraid of stopping. That was the moment. Thak now realized when the war was already lost. Back in the council chamber, Rethak stopped speaking. The memory was heavy in his chest. The high speaker's voice was soft now. What happened after that? Rethek's eyes darkened. That, he said, is only the beginning. And if you truly wish to know the rest, you must first understand one thing. He stepped closer to the center of the chamber, looking at each delegate in turn. They don't fight to win. They fight to end you. The chamber was silent. No one laughed this time. Somewhere deep in the shadows of the hall, a recording drone's red light blinked, capturing every word. Thak knew the galaxy would not believe him, not yet. But they would. When the humans came for them, they would understand. The memory burned in Commander Rethek's mind. Every detail was sharp. Every sound, every image, every scream, as if the battle had happened only hours ago. His fleet had entered the human system with full confidence. 42 warships. Thousands of soldiers. Weapons that could reduce a city to dust in seconds. Nothing could stop them. Or so they thought. Now, standing before the council, Rethak spoke slowly, his voice heavy with the weight of failure. You think you know war, he said. You think you understand the enemy before the fight begins. But humans, they are not like any enemy we have faced. The warning that wasn't a warning, the first human transmission still echoed in his mind, not a plea for mercy, not even a refusal. It was music, not peaceful music. It was loud, full of rhythm and pounding drums, something that stirred the blood even in alien veins. It carried no words in the alien tongue, yet somehow, Thake understood its meaning. We are coming for you. The bridge crew had looked at each other, confused. Some were amused. Others uneasy. Second Officer Sivar had laughed. They try to frighten us with sound. How primitive. His long scaled tail flicked lazily against the floor, but Rethek had not laughed. The music had energy. It had purpose. Prepare all weapons, he ordered. The approach from the planet below. The first wave of human ships rose into orbit. Rethek studied them on the tactical display. The designs were strange, some ships sleek and sharp, others bulky and armored. There was no uniform style, no symmetry. They looked like a mix of military craft, converted cargo haulers, and even what seemed to be retrofitted passenger ships. Savar shook his head. Disorganized. This will be over quickly. But Hrothgar's instincts told him something else. The humans weren't flying in neat, predictable lines like most fleets. They spread out, forming loose shapes that constantly shifted. They moved like predators in a hunt, not soldiers in a parade. First strike, the order was given. The alien fleet advanced. Plasma cannons roared, sending burning lances of energy through space. The first human ships were hit. One exploded in a burst of light. Another spun out of control, breaking apart. The bridge crew cheered, but the cheering stopped less than a minute later. Without warning, 2 Alliance destroyers vanished in simultaneous fireballs. Not from a frontal attack, but from the sides, blind angles where no enemy was expected. The humans had flanked them. How? The tactical officer gasped. They used the wreckage of their own ships for cover. They hid in it. Thaka's claws dug into the arm of his command chair. This was not normal warfare. This was something else. The Chazarthak made a quick decision. Pull back, regroup, force them into open space. The fleet began to retreat, forming into a defensive arc. But the humans didn't stay back. They chased. That was unheard of. Defenders always stayed close to their planet, to guard it. But the humans came after them like predators refusing to let prey escape. They're pushing us out of range. Savar growled. Good, we can crush them with long-range fire. But even at a distance, the humans adapted. Their smaller ships darted in and out, forcing the alien gunners to waste shots. Every time a target was destroyed, 2 more appeared from unexpected directions. The smile on the bridge, the weapons officer's voice was tense. Commander, we are receiving enemy visual feeds. Thek turned. On the central display, a human pilot was visible through the canopy of his fighter. He was young. His face was streaked with sweat. The hull around him was scarred from near misses, and he was smiling. The image froze in Thek's mind. A warrior smiling in the middle of battle, surrounded by fire and death. They're insane, Savar muttered. No, Raythik said quietly. They're dangerous. Boarding attempt desperate to end the fight quickly. Raythik ordered a boarding strike on one of the human frigates. A squadron of elite soldiers launched in assault pods, cutting through the enemy hull. The boarding team reported in, at first. Gunfire echoed through the comms, then laughter. Not from the aliens, from the humans. Sir. They're not afraid, the team leader shouted over the noise. They're charging at us. The transmission ended in static. No one from that team returned. The turning moment Rithika's fleet was still larger, still stronger on paper, but something was changing. His soldiers were losing confidence. They fired faster, missed more. They jumped at shadows on the radar. The humans seemed to sense it. They pressed harder, their attacks growing bolder. They don't care about casualties, Thak realized. They only care about breaking us. And they were succeeding. Retreat that wasn't finally. Arthak gave the order he had never given before. All ships fall back to Rally Point Gamma. Full retreat, but the humans didn't let them go. They followed. Every time a damaged alien ship tried to escape, human fighters swarmed it like insects, tearing it apart piece by piece. There was no escape route that stayed open for long. It was as if the humans already knew where they were going before they got there. End of the first day. When the first day of fighting ended, Rithika's fleet was down by nearly a third. 15 ships gone, thousands dead. And Earth was still untouched. That night, if you could call it night in the endless dark of space, Hrothgar stood alone in the observation deck of his flagship. He watched the distant blue world. It looked calm, peaceful, but he now knew the truth. It was not a peaceful world. It was a predator's den. Back in the council chamber, Raythik's voice was low but steady. They chased us across the stars. That day, they would have chased us to the ends of the galaxy. They do not fight like us. They do not think like us. If you face them, be ready to lose more than ships and soldiers. Be ready to lose the will to fight. The delegates shifted. Uncomfortably, some no longer looked amused. Others whispered to one another in hushed, worried tones, and Rithik knew this was only the beginning. The council chamber was quiet now. No one laughed. No one smiled. The story of the first clash had stripped the amusement from their faces, but the high speaker leaned forward, light pulsing slowly through its crystal body. And yet, Commander, you survived. Tell us how. Thekke's claws tapped against the edge of the podium. Survival. It had not felt like survival. It had felt like being allowed to live, for reasons he still didn't fully understand. It was not skill, he said slowly. It was not strength. It was something else. And if you truly wish to understand humans, you must understand. What happened next? The traps that failed after the disastrous first battle. Thekke had pulled his remaining ships back to a dense asteroid field in the outer system. It was a perfect defensive position. Mines hidden among the rocks. Sniper. Cannons waiting in the shadows. Narrow corridors of space that could be sealed with collapsing asteroids. Savar had been confident. They will come for us, Commander, and when they do, they will be destroyed. But the humans did come. And they were not destroyed. They didn't charge into the traps blindly. They seemed to know where every mine was. They flew around them, using the asteroids for cover. Sometimes they would send a small ship forward as bait, forcing the aliens to reveal their positions, then strike from another angle. It was as if they were reading the battlefield like a book. And Rithik realized something chilling. The humans had studied them. Captured despite the chaos, the aliens managed to disable a small human craft. It was dragged aboard one of the larger warships, its hull smoking. Inside, they found 5 human soldiers. Their armor was battered, their faces streaked with grime and blood. They were brought to the interrogation chambers. Arthek had seen many prisoners of war. Most were frightened. Some were angry. Others begged. The humans did none of these things. They sat calmly, even smiling faintly, as if they were not the ones in danger. When the interrogator demanded information, one of the humans, a woman, with short hair and eyes like steel, leaned forward and said, "You think this is bad? You haven't seen bad yet." The laugh. One of the younger interrogators lost patience. He slammed a weapon down on the table. "Tell us your fleet's position, or—" The human interrupted him by laughing. It wasn't forced. It wasn't nervous. It was genuine, as if she'd just heard a good joke. "You really don't get it, do you?" she said. "You can kill us. You can burn our ships. But it won't matter. We'll still win." The words unsettled Thekke more than any threat could have. The escape. 2 hours later, alarms rang across the ship. The human prisoners had escaped. Security footage showed them moving through the corridors with terrifying precision, disabling cameras, knocking out guards, never staying in one place for more than a few seconds. They didn't run for the hangar or escape pods. They ran to the ship's engineering core. By the time security forces caught up, the humans had overloaded the plasma reactors and stolen every data module they could carry. They were caught in the end, surrounded in a corner of the reactor room. And yet, they smiled again, even as they were dragged away. It was only later, when the ship's systems began to fail one by one, that Thekke realized why. The humans had planted a virus in the ship's computers. Within hours, the warship was adrift and helpless. Guerrilla tactics. Thekke tried to resume the offensive. But every time his fleet moved, the humans seemed to know. They struck supply lines, destroyed fuel depots, and ambushed isolated patrols. They didn't fight like soldiers defending territory. They fought like predators defending a den, striking hard, then vanishing into the dark before a counterattack could form. It wore the aliens down. Every day, more soldiers grew restless. More officers argued over strategy. The humans were not just attacking their ships, they were attacking their minds. A dangerous realization one night. On the observation deck, Savar approached Rithak. "They are strange," the second officer admitted. "They take damage without flinching. They sacrifice ships without hesitation. I do not understand their logic." Theka stared at the distant blue glow of Earth. "They don't think like we do. They don't fear what we fear. And that makes them dangerous." The prisoner's words, before the captured humans were transferred off the ship. Thak decided to speak to one of them himself. It was the same woman who had laughed during interrogation. He stepped into the cell. She looked up, unafraid. "You're the one in charge," she said, as if she had been expecting him. "Why do you fight like this?" Rithak asked. "You know you are outnumbered, outgunned. Why not surrender and live?" The woman smiled, not mocking, but with a kind of pride. "We're not fighting for territory. We're fighting for our people, for every child, every friend, every stranger back home. And when you fight for that, you don't think about the odds." Thek left the cell without another word. But her voice stayed in his mind for days. A war of nerves in the following weeks. The human attacks grew even more unpredictable. Sometimes they struck with overwhelming force, destroying a key shipyard. Sometimes they let the aliens advance, only to ambush them days later in a seemingly unrelated sector. They planted false signals, lured ships into empty space, and even sent messages in the voices of dead alien officers to sow confusion that it became impossible to trust any information. And in war without trust, even the strongest fleet begins to crumble. The breaking point. Rithak knew the campaign was failing when one of his captains requested to withdraw entirely, not because of losses, not because of damage, but because the crew could no longer sleep. "They're everywhere," the captain said over the comm. "I dream about them. I hear them in the vents of the ship. I see them in every shadow." Thek did not laugh. He felt the same. Back in the council chamber, Brefe's voice was low and cold. "They fight with ships, yes. They fight with weapons. But more than that, they fight with the mind. They find your weakness not in your armor, but in your thoughts, and they break it." He let his gaze sweep across the delegates. "Some of you think your fleets are strong. Some of you think your soldiers are brave. I tell you this. Against humans, it will not matter. They will make you doubt before they destroy you. And once you doubt, you have already lost." The chamber remained silent, but this silence felt different now. It was no longer the stillness of disbelief. It was the stillness of fear. The council chamber was colder now. The air felt heavier. Every delegate leaned forward, listening to every word. No one whispered. No one moved. Commander Urtheka's voice was low, each sentence deliberate. "You want to know when the war changed? It wasn't in the first battle. It wasn't when they destroyed our traps. The true turning point was when they came for our supply lines. The bleeding of the fleet after weeks of fighting. The alien fleet still held most of its ships, but supplies were running out. Fuel depots, ammunition caches, medical stockpiles. Arthek had thought they were well protected, hidden in the shadows of barren moons and asteroid belts. But one by one, they began to disappear. At first, it was small things. A shipment of reactor crystals vanished. A storage hub failed to report in. Then it became worse. An entire fuel station destroyed in the dead of night. A convoy of supply ships found drifting in space, their crews gone. No wreckage from battle, no distress calls, just gone. The Ghost Warthek deployed scout ships to track the attackers. None returned. When the wreckage of one scout was finally found, the damage was strange, precision strikes. Each hit exactly where it would cripple the ship instantly. "It's as if they know our blueprints," Savar muttered, staring at the reports. Thake said nothing. He knew it was possible the humans had captured enough equipment, enough soldiers, to piece together their weaknesses. The humans weren't just fighting in space anymore. They were inside the war. The raid on Outpost 7. The worst blow came at Outpost 7, a mining base deep inside Alliance-controlled space. It was far from Earth. Too far, Vathek had believed, for human forces to reach. But one night, alarms screamed across the base. Cameras caught only fragments, shadows moving in the dust storms, flashes of gunfire, soldiers falling before they could even see their attackers. By the time reinforcements arrived, the entire outpost was burning. Not a single human body was found. They had come, destroyed everything, and left without a trace. Restless nights, the raids took their toll. Thake's soldiers grew jumpy. Even the strongest warriors flinched at sudden noises. Some claimed to see human ships on the sensors where none existed. They've infected the crew with fear, Thake realized. And fear spreads faster than fire. The desert strike, then came the moment that broke the fleet's spirit. Thake had moved a battalion to a desert world for resupply. It was safe territory, deep within their lines. But that night, the humans attacked. They didn't arrive in a fleet. They came in small dropships, silent against the night sky. By the time the alarms sounded, they were already inside the camp. Arthak arrived in time to see it. A small group of humans, no more than 20, moving like a single organism. They threw explosives into supply tents, sabotaged weapons, cut communications. Every action was precise, deliberate. One of them, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, turned toward Wethak's position for a moment. Even from a distance, Thek could see the man's expression, calm, focused, almost certain. Then the humans vanished into the dunes, leaving only fire and ruin behind. The death of Sivar. That same night, Thofa's second officer, Silver, led a pursuit team into the desert. They never returned. When scouts found the bodies days later, they were arranged in a line, weapons placed neatly beside them. No sign of the attackers. No sign of a battle. Just silence. Thak stood over Sivar's body for a long time. In the reptilian warrior's final moments, his eyes were open, but there was no anger in them, only something Thak had never seen in him before. Fear, the breaking of morale by now. The fleet was restless, bordering on mutiny. Captains argued about tactics. Some demanded retreat. Others insisted on one last full-scale assault. Thak knew both were wrong. The humans wanted them to attack in rage. They wanted them to run in panic. Either would mean destruction. He ordered the fleet to regroup and hold position in a defensive sphere. No ship moved without his command, but even in formation, the humans struck. Fighters appeared out of nowhere, launched missiles, and vanished into hyperspace before the aliens could respond. It was not war anymore. It was slow death, the last stand. Attempt finally, Arthak decided to make one desperate move. If he could destroy the humans' forward base, wherever it was, maybe he could slow them down. For weeks, scouts searched for signs of human command ships. At last they found what appeared to be a small staging area on a rocky moon. Thak committed everything he had left. The fleet descended on the moon like a storm. Plasma fire tore through the surface, vaporizing rocks and metal. It wasn't until too late that realized it was a trap. The base was nothing but decoys, empty structures, fake heat signatures, and old transmitters broadcasting false orders. While his fleet attacked the moon, the humans struck his real supply hub, destroying the last reserves of fuel and ammunition. The message. When Thak returned to what was left of his base, he found a message waiting. It was not in the alien language, but the translation was clear. We don't stop, we don't hide, we don't forget. There was no signature, no name. But he knew it came from the humans. The collapse with supplies gone, fuel almost empty, and morale shattered. Thak had no choice. He ordered the retreat back to Alliance Space. The humans did not chase this time. They didn't need to. The damage was done. Half the fleet never made it home. Some ships broke down. Others vanished without explanation. Fake didn't know if the humans had taken them, or if the crews had simply given up. The final words of warning back in the council chamber. Fake's voice was rough now. They don't fight for victory. They fight for survival. And when a species fights for survival, there's no limit to what they will do. He looked at each delegate in turn. They will strike your fleets. They will poison your food. They will burn your homes. They will make you afraid to close your eyes. And by the time you realize what is happening, you will already be broken. The chamber remained silent. Not a single delegate spoke out. Far away, in the darkness between the stars, Veth imagined human ships waiting, silent, patient, ready for the next war. The council chamber had never felt so heavy. The air was thick, like a storm about to break. Every alien delegate sat in silence, their eyes fixed on the battered war hero in the center. Commander Rethak stood tall, despite the wounds that had not yet healed. His armor was scratched, his arm still bound in a sling. But his voice was steady. "You wanted the truth," he said, "and I will give it to you. But you may not like what you hear." The last days of the campaign, Rethak spoke. Of the retreat. Of the endless days drifting through empty space with fuel tanks almost dry. Of soldiers staring out into the black void, expecting human ships to appear at any moment. "They did not follow us," he said. "They didn't have to. They had already won." The fleet limped back into Alliance territory, not as a proud armada, but as a shadow of itself. Ships that had once gleamed with polished metal now floated in space like scarred ghosts. When they reached the home docks, the crews did not cheer. They disembarked in silence, heads down, avoiding the eyes of the citizens who came to see their victors. Returned out the question back in his quarters. Vake had asked himself the same question every night. Why didn't the humans finish us? They could have. They had the skill. They had the numbers. They had the will. So why let him live? Why let any of them live? The answer came days later in the form of a message. The human transmission. It arrived through encrypted channels, so well hidden that even the Alliance's best technicians almost missed it. When Rethak played it, the screen flickered and showed a human officer, older, gray at the temples, eyes sharp. "I am Admiral Kane, Terran Defense Fleet," the man sighed. "You fought well, better than most. That is why you are alive." The message paused, then the human leaned forward slightly. "This is not mercy. This is a warning. We fight only when we must. But when we fight, we do not stop until the threat is gone. Leave Earth alone. Leave our people alone. There will not be a second warning." The message ended. No threats. No insults. Just certainty. The weight of the words. Fak had replayed those words again and again. They were not bluster. They were not an attempt to frighten him. They were truth. He understood it now. The humans had not destroyed him because they wanted him to carry the message back. They wanted the galaxy to know, and so here he was, standing in front of the council, delivering that message. The warning to the galaxy. Thek let his gaze sweep across the chamber. "Some of you still think humans are primitive. You believe their worlds are small, their weapons outdated, their fleets scattered. You think they are weak." He leaned forward, his voice cold. "They are not weak. They are dangerous. They are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because of their weapons, though those are deadly enough. Not because of their numbers, though they grow faster than you expect. No, it is because of what they are. They adapt faster than any species I have seen. They learn from every battle, every loss. And they do not break. They will fight with stones if they have no ships. They will fight with fire if they have no guns. And they will win." The delegates react. The chamber stirred at last. A delegate from the insectoid Threk clicked her mandibles in disbelief. You are exaggerating. No single species can be as you describe. Thek's eyes locked on hers. Send your fleet to test them. You will see. You will also never see your fleet again. Another delegate, a scaled creature from the Varrock worlds, hissed. If they are so dangerous, should we not strike first? Destroy them before they grow stronger? Thef's tone was flat. You could try, but you would only teach them how to kill you faster. The silence of understanding the chamber fell quiet again. This time, it was not disbelief that kept them silent. It was calculation. Every delegate was weighing the cost of a war with humans. Some were already thinking of alliances. Some were thinking of leaving human space untouched. Others were thinking of ways to use humans as weapons against their enemies. Fox saw it in their eyes and knew his warning might not be enough. The final twist as the session was about to end. An aide rushed into the chamber and whispered urgently to the high speaker. The speaker's crystalline form pulsed brighter, then dimmed in shock. Commander Ruvek, the speaker said, while you have been speaking, our border sensors have detected an unknown vessel entering Alliance space. It is small, human in design. The chamber erupted in noise, voices raised, claws tapping, mandibles clicking. Rethak did not move. He simply closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. Do not fire on it, he said. If it is here, it is not lost. It knows exactly where it is going. The closing words, the high speaker turned back to him. What should we do? Rethak's voice was calm. Pray they come as friends, because if they come as enemies... He paused, letting the silence stretch. There will be no second meeting. The departure when Rethak left the chamber, the whispers followed him. Some called him a coward for retreating. Some called him a liar, but others had the look of those who had seen a storm on the horizon and were already preparing. For at dot as he stepped into the light of the docking bay, he saw the stars above, endless, silent, cold. Somewhere out there, humans were moving. And if the galaxy was wise, it would step carefully. Ithake knew the truth now. Humans did not seek war, but when war came to them, it never ended the way their enemies expected.